The community of Greenspond is comprised of several islands. The largest is Greenspond Island, and the smaller ones including Batterton, Ship, Newells, Wings, Pig, Maiden, Grouts, and Puffin Island. There are several explanations of the origin of the name Greenspond. The most popular is that it is based on the names of two of the early families, Green and Pond. Another states that the name reflects the green of the trees that covered the island and the harbour basin, which resembled a pond. Greenspond is one of the oldest continually inhabited outports in Newfoundland, having been settled in 1690s. In the first 100 years after settlement, the people of Greenspond lived from the bounty of the sea. The community thrived and became a major trading centre because of its proximity to and its position on the main sea lanes, and was known as the capital of the North. Greenspond's chief asset was its proximity to the inshore cod fishing grounds. During the 19th century, fishermen not only exploited the local fishing grounds, but also went further afield to find codfish, some as far as the coast of Labrador. By mid-century, it had become a prominent supply centre and clearing for the Labrador fishery, which led to the appointment of a collector of customs by the colonial government in 1838. The annual seal hunt was another asset in the Greenspond economy. The community's advantageous location in the path of the northern ice flow enabled land-based hunters using guns and nets to capture seals. By the early 19th century, the seal hunt had become an important part of life. Historian Judge D.W. Prowse reported that in 1807, from the Bonavista and Greenspond, 6 ships went to the ice with 64 men. He also reported that in the town of Greenspond itself, 80 men took 17,000 seals in nets. In 1860, 18 vessels, each with a crew of about 20 men, persecuted the seal hunt out of Greenspond. Because most of the crews and sealing captains were drawn from Greenspond and neighbouring communities, sealing ships would leave St. John's and Conception Bay in the fall of the year and anchor in Greenspond Tickle until spring, when the hunt would begin. There was great pride in the accomplishments of local sealing captains such as Darius Blandford, who made the quickest trip ever recorded, and Captain Peter Carter, who secured the heaviest load of seals in the history of the industry. Its importance as a major trading and supply centre meant that Greenspond enjoyed a steady population growth of prosperous tradesmen and artisans, tinsmiths, blacksmiths, coopers, cobblers, carpenters, and others. Merchant firms including Slade, Fryer, Brooking and Company, William Cox and Company, Ridley and Sons, W. Waterman, Philip Hutchings, Harvey and Company, James Ryan, and J. and W. Stewart. These companies were primarily engaged in the buying and selling of fish, but also in supply and outfitting for these fisheries. The fish trading business houses were also general stores. Early in the 20th century, the Fishermen's Protective Union, which had a large branch in Greenspond, opened a union trading store in the community, and in 1910, Greenspond had the honour of hosting the union's annual convention. The early inhabitants of Greenspond hailed from the west of England, mainly Dorset, but also Devon, Hampshire, and Somerset. The names of these early settlers can still be found there today, such as Bishop, Blandford, Green, Mullins, Oakleys, Carters, and many more. Gradually, Greenspond acquired the services and facilities needed by a bustling commercial town. In 1848, there was a regular mail and passenger service, a fortnightly steamer, and a weekly overland route between Greenspond and St. John's. To ensure the safety of the steamer into Greenspond after nightfall, the government erected a lighthouse in 1873 on Puffin Island at the approaches to Greenspond Harbour. In winter, when the steamers did not run, the train transported the mail to Gambo, and from there other couriers, often Mi'kmaq, carried it overland to Greenspond. John Joe, perhaps the most notable Mi'kmaq courier, travelled for many years with his dogs from Gambo to Greenspond. The laying of a submarine cable between Greenspond and the Newfoundland mainland in 1885 and the subsequent provision of a telegraph service greatly enhanced Greenspond communication with the rest of Newfoundland and the outside world. The turn of the century marked Greenspond's zeniths with a population of almost 2,000, a resident doctor, magistrate, policeman, customs officer, clergy, postmaster, teachers, and numerous business enterprises. The fabric of the church is deeply woven into Greenspond history. The early settlers from the west country of England brought their religious affiliations with them. The first visit by a clergy was Reverend Henry Jones of the Church of England, who under the auspices of the Society of the Propagation of the Gospel served in Bonavista Bay in 1720s. His first trip to Greenspond was in 1728, but the first church came much later. St. Stephen's Church was opened in 1812 and owes its construction to the efforts of Governor Sir John Duckworth, who had allocated funds for the building of the church. In 1829, a resident clergyman, Reverend N.A. Coster, was appointed to Greenspond, followed by Reverend Julian Morton in 1849. Morton wrote, "The mission of Greenspond is the largest in the Diocese of Newfoundland, extending along the 70 miles of coast and requiring a journey of 200 miles to visit all its stations." The size of the mission facilitated the enlargement of the church in the 1850s. Wesleyan Methodism made its first appearance in 1796 when Reverend George Smith, a traveling missionary from Trinity, organized a small Methodist class in the community. Services were held in stores and private homes, and with the assistance of laymen, Methodist membership gradually increased. In 1862, Reverend John Allen became Greenspond's first Methodist clergyman in a mission that extended from Flat Islands to Musgrave Harbor. In 1873, the first Methodist church was opened with a seating capacity for over 600. It served the congregation until 1965, when it was torn down to make way for a new building. In the late 19th century, the Salvation Army came to Greenspond and built a citadel up on the island. Later, as membership grew, another larger chapel was built down by the main road. There were never many Roman Catholics in Greenspond. In 1826, there were 500 Protestants and 100 Catholics, but many of them were to move elsewhere. The 1874 census showed that 945 Church of England adherents, 499 Methodists, and 79 Roman Catholics. In 1901, there were only 18 Roman Catholics listed. Nevertheless, they built a small Roman Catholic chapel in Pond Head. The history of education in Greenspond followed that of the churches. In 1815, the residents of Greenspond petitioned the government to appoint Thomas Whalley as lay reader and teacher. By 1828, the records show that there were 186 day school pupils, 220 in Sunday school, and 75 in adult school. In 1848, Reverend Robert Dyer recorded in his diary that a visiting judge had claimed that the school in Greenspond was the largest in the island. The Methodists opened a school in 1880, and a Salvation Army school opened in 1900. It can be said that Greenspond export of human resources equals or exceeds export in cod, seals, salmon, and the like. Throughout the 20th century, the fishery remained the major economic enterprise of the people of Greenspond. A bait deposit was established in 1946. A fresh fish processing plant was built in 1957, and a smokehouse was opened in the 1970s. In 1951, the town was incorporated, and with municipal government came water and sewer facilities, improving light and power services, improvements in local roads, and perhaps the most important of all, the construction of a causeway connecting Greenspond Island with the Newfoundland mainland. Greenspond continues to thrive, a superb example of a Newfoundland coastal community which has survived and prospered for 300 years, despite the inherent fluctuations in a fishing economy.